Has the recording started? Okay, now it's started. All right. So we will get to the very first, that is an activity lifecycle. Uh, does anyone know what exactly an activity is? Like, does anyone have any idea of what an activity is? Just a simple answer. No one? Okay, fine. So uh, simply, uh, an activity can be referred to as one single screen of an application. It's very simple. Like any screen you look at in an Android app, it has to be a part of an activity. So, for example, when you call someone, the dialer layout or your WhatsApp chat, the starting page of WhatsApp, it's all a part of an activity. So each screen of an application can be called as an activity. And as usual, an application can have multiple pages. So naturally, one application can have multiple screens or multiple activities. And when you navigate from one screen to another, that is one activity to another activity, so Android has to keep a track of how, like the log of from where to where you're navigating. So it does it by using something called as an activity stack. So for any type of navigation that you do, a new activity comes above the top of the activity stack, and it just keeps on stacking up and up. And when you go back, like you want to come back to the previous activity, then the top of the stack will be removed, and you will see the previous activity. That's basically how a stack works, right? So uh, uh, so navigating from pages, it will also be a part of an activity stack. Now, let us say you have a screen in your phone. Just imagine your favorite application and imagine its homepage. It is a part of an activity, like I just said. And every activity will have four stages. The first thing is the foreground, that is the top of the stack. It is exactly like the name suggests. It is the current active stack, and that is the activity that the user interacts with. Like let's say in Instagram, the home page, the page where you scroll. So like you interact with the screen, right? You interact with the application, and that is the foreground. That is going on in the foreground of that. So that means that the activity is in the foreground. So the user can interact with it, and it's active. So, okay, then what will happen if in the second stage, what does it mean when you say that activity has lost focus? Uh, that would mean whenever the it is not the that is not anymore the active stack, but it is still visible to the user in the background. How does it happen? Does anyone have any idea or any instance? Just give me a simple example of when a page is visible, but you still cannot access it. Does anyone want to make a guess? You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. It would be much easier for me to communicate.
Like when we see the DP of a person in WhatsApp, we see the DP, but in the background chat
Yeah,
list we can't access, but it is visible to us.
exactly. That's a very good example. And that is when you know that you cannot scroll through the chat list when you like tap on a DP. The DP comes into focus, and the active stack loses its focus. That means it's a very good example actually. Like it is exactly like the screen is still visible to you, but you still cannot interact with it. Third stage comes the background state. So in when the activity goes into the background, it means that it will be hidden from the user. Like it will not be visible to you anymore, and but it will still retain information. Like whenever you go into from your chat section, like suppose you're chatting with someone, and then you open the profile, you tap on the action bar, like the top part, and then you open the profile, right? That's what happens in WhatsApp. So then what happens once you go into the screen, into the profile page, the chat section is no longer visible to you. That is when it means that that particular activity has gone into the background, and the profile activity has come over it. Like that is what's active right now. That's what means being in the background. But if you go back, like you press on the back button, then you will see that all the, like suppose you had some chat that was written in the text box, but you didn't send it. That information will still be there. It will not be deleted. And the last thing is when the activity is destroyed completely. That would mean simply removing the app from the RAM, from the memory. So then all the information it contains will be lost if not saved. And to again use it, you'll have to restart that particular screen or application. So these are essentially the four stages of an activity of a very screen that you see in an application. Now, for each of these four stages, we have some specific functions which we can implement to use the features. Like suppose we want to do something, our app to do something when the app comes into foreground. Suppose we want to save something before the app, just before the app gets destroyed. So to do that, we have something called as the activity lifecycle. Uh, Pay attention to this. This is a very important part, and understand. You need to understand what happens when you open a screen, like when a screen opens in an application, what exactly goes through. So what happens is you can see there are 7 functions essentially, and you can see the flow chart right there. Can I show that? Can you see the pointer?
Yeah.
Yes, we.
Okay. So suppose let me take an example of let me take the example of WhatsApp itself. So what would happen when the first time you open WhatsApp, the chat list appears, right? So let's take as the chat list as the as let's just assume that it is one activity. So when the first time your activity opens up, the onCreate function, we have a function called onCreate that will be called. Second, in onCreate, what in the background, what happens is that in onCreate function, suppose you have a layout file of that application that needs to be filled up, like the chat should be filled up, and the bottom top part of the application should be filled up. Like it should be filled up with your data, right? With your chats. So in onCreate function, that thing happens, like your main coding part goes in onCreate function. Like it is exactly like in Kotlin, when we studied Kotlin Playground, our programming starts from the main function, right? Whatever in the main function, it gets executed first. So in Android also, in the life cycle, in onCreate, the first starting code goes into here. Second, once the layout is created, like in the onCreate function, you have created everything. After that, the program will go into onStart function. We have something called as the onStart. When this happens, the screen or the activity is becomes visible to the user. Like from the time of you tapping the WhatsApp icon to the point when you actually see the your chats. When you see the chats, that means that the onStart has been called, and now you can see that all your chats. But you can still not interact with it. Next comes the onResume function. In onResume, the activity now becomes active. The screen is now active, and that's when you can interact with the application. That's when you can do whatever you want to do. So this all 3 of these functions gets called from the time you click on the icon to the time you can actually use that icon. So by now you will have known that all of these happens like, very quickly. Like in an Android phone, it hardly takes a second for the application to load, right? But within that time, all three of these functions are called. Next, after on resume, your activity is running, your screen is running, and you do whatever you want to do with it. Now, suppose let's say the activity again goes into the background or it loses focus. So when that happens, this particular function will be called, that is on pause. So if I tap on someone's DP, like one person just said, so when you do that, then on pause function will be called. And if you have something like if you want a particular thing to happen whenever that application loses focus, then you can write your code in this part of the in under this function. But mind it, when in on pause, the activities can still be seen. After on pause, let's say you go to a different activity, and that's when it's no longer visible to you. So then the function on stop is called, and now the activity is hidden from the user and like it cannot be seen, but it still retains some of the information. So what will happen is once you come back to the previous activity, like you decide to not end the application but to come back to the previous screen. So here again we have something called as on restart. If the previous activity again gains focus, then the on restart function will be called. And from on restart, again, it will go into on start. That is, the activity will become visible to the user. On resume, then go into on resume. You can again start interact with it. And again, that life cycle goes on and on. But what will happen if you close the application altogether? If you close the application altogether, then on destroy function will be called. And if you have some functionalities, then if you want to save something, then you can do it here. And after that, that activity will be removed from memory. That will be shut down. So here you can see within the whole life cycle of the application, on create and on destroy will be called only once, from the creation to its destruction. But all the other functions can be called multiple times. Like depends on your functionality of what you want to do. So this is a very important thing to understand and to keep in mind, because sometimes it may happen that you need some proper functionality for this particular state. So then you can access these functions. We will see some of these functions today. So then you might get a better understanding of this.
Here,
Yeah.
you didn't told about when the apps need memory, that section.
This one.
The other applications need memory. No, no, in this flowchart.
Okay. Yeah. This part. Other applications need memory. You want to understand this part?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what will happen is, suppose you are using WhatsApp, but you tap on the home screen, like you tap on the home button of your phone. So what do you think? WhatsApp will not be destroyed, right? It still remains in your memory, in your RAM, but it is not visible to you anymore. Like suppose you close WhatsApp and you open, let's say, Instagram. So then on destroy function will not be called. The application will be in on stop. Like it will just remain there and it will be in memory, and it will be retaining its information. But suppose you open it again, and if it's in memory, then your on restart will be called, and then again this cycle will go on. But supposedly you don't close WhatsApp, but you try to open multiple other applications. So what may happen is that your phone may run out of RAM, your phone may run out of memory. If that happens, then if the system thinks that it's getting too heavy for it, other applications need some memory, then it may try to remove your application from the memory, and that's when it will again stop your application. It will not be destroyed, but it will remove your app from memory. All its data will be gone, and then again this will not go into on start function. It will again go into on create function where you again create the whole screen. Thus, it basically means it will again start the application. I
Okay,
hope
okay, I got
I'm
it.
clear. Okay, coming to the next very important feature called view binding. View binding is something that uh, why before starting any project, you should enable this feature because it will be very easy for you to then connect your layout to your actual Kotlin file. I'll show you what view binding is, but first, uh, as you know, in Android, we use two types of file to connect. One is the main activity.kt file where you write your code, and another one is your activity main.xml. That XML part is where you design the layout of that particular screen, right? So, how will suppose you have two buttons in your layout, so you will obviously give them some a name. That is what we call it as an ID. We have an ID which by which you can refer to them. Like each element would have a different ID in a particular XML file. We use this ID because in the coding part, like the Kotlin file, we will need to access its information, right? We will need to say that if I press button one, then this particular function should take place, should be initiated. So earlier, what used to happen is we always had to manually provide the ID of each and every element in our. Suppose I was just talking about two buttons, right? But in a professional application, you will always have more than two buttons. It's always it can be very frustrating, and it can also be very buggy. Like it's easier to make mistakes if you always have to manually assign the ID to for each and every Kotlin for each and every element in your Kotlin file. We used to do it by using something called as a view find view by ID. But now we don't use this feature. View binding actually is a very helpful feature. It will automatically create. Okay, so let me start by how to enable view binding. You can add view binding in the build.gradle file. I'll tell you what that is in a minute when we go into live demo. I'll actually enable it and then I'll show you. What view binding will do is once you enable it, it will automatically generate a binding object for every layout in your application. Like suppose you have activity main.xml, then in the background, you don't have to do anything. In the background itself, it will create a class called as activity main binding. It's the same naming convention. Like if it's activity main, then it will be converted into activity main binding. It will create another class called activity main binding, and then we can use this activity main, and this activity main binding will always have some the IDs of all the elements in that particular XML file, and we can directly access them using their IDs that we have assigned to them. So we don't have to manually assign an ID for each and every element. View binding will do it for us automatically, and it also has some cool features like type safety because let's say we have a text view and a button, and each have a different ID. So it will automatically create the binding object, and it will know that one ID is of button type, one ID is of text view type. We don't have to specify it. Earlier we have used to we needed to specify it. Like using find view by ID, we have to tell that this ID is a button, and we have given it an ID of, let's say, button one. So now we don't have to do that. Also, suppose there are let's say 50 elements in your XML file, and you forget to manually uh, assign one ID to a particular object, and you try to then uh, use it. So then that will be a null error, like a null pointer X again. So view binding automatically like removes that error because it will automatically create the binding object based on our layout file. So we don't have to like worry about the ID being a null type. We'll get into that when we go into a live demo part. This is just the theory part to make you have a basic understanding. And the last part we'll do today is intents. That is going from one part of a screen, one part to another part in an application. Intents can be used for mainly three things: sending the user to another application. Like, suppose what happens when you, okay, when you order a cab from Uber or Ola, after you confirm the request, like the booking, it always has a call button, right? That call button will directly call the driver. So if you have noticed, like the call button, when you tap on the call button, so it will redirect you to your phone's phone application, and then it will have that number already preloaded in the dialer. You just have to call it. Or sometimes it may happen that it directly calls the, so that is directly calls the driver. So that is the work of an intent. It will know what to do and which type of application can do that function. It can also it is also used in getting a result from an activity. Let's say in Android, let's say we have a form where we need to pick some images. Like, okay, in WhatsApp, what happens when you try to change your display profile, display picture, like your DP? So what it does is when you click on the edit button, it will open your phone's gallery application, and from there you select a photo, and then it returns that photo into WhatsApp, and then you can crop it, and then you can put it as your DP, right? So again, that is a work of an intent. An intent knows that if you tap on the edit button, then it will show you all the photos of your phone. Also, it will allow other apps to start your activity. That is exactly like in the phone application, if an intent type comes and asks that I want to call someone. So again, that will be the work of an intent. We'll uh, get into these again today only. We have two types of intents. One is implicit and another is explicit. Implicit means that implicit is used when you don't exactly know like what the destination of your function is. Like it's exactly like you want to call someone, you tap on the call button, but different phones have different dialers. Like Samsung, Google will have different types of phone dialers. All applications won't be the same. So how will the Android application know which application to open? That is the work of an implicit intent. When you type in the functionality, you'll have to give it a type of what type of action should it perform, and it will automatically it will automatically open the corresponding application. Or the best thing is that when it asks you which application to open, it must have happened like you tap on a link on a URL, and then a share page will open. When it will ask choose your application, it can either be your phone's default internet, or if you have Firefox installed, it will again show Firefox, Chrome, Google, or your phone's default browser, which app do you want to use, right? That is how this works. That is a work of an implicit intent. So when you type in Google Chrome, let's say you type in Google Chrome, then it will open that URL in Google Chrome. Okay, and in explicit intent, we know exactly where the application needs to navigate us, like going from one activity to another, moving from one screen to another. It is a work of an explicit intent. So this is what we'll learn today. I'll show you a live demo now. Let me just open Android Studio. I want everyone to open their Android Studio right now, and we'll start with a new project. Does anyone have any doubt so far?
Bhaiya, if we like you said that if we call and we have to choose that implicit intent, if we
Hmm.
give the default that then it becomes explicit or
We cannot give it a default. What you are asking is like if from four browsers, if you select one, like always choose this. Are
yes,
you asking that?
yes, yes.
Yeah, it is also an implicit intent. That intent will know that okay, and whenever this type of data comes, like I have to open a URL, I'll be using this application. It will always be an implicit intent only. Suppose you uninstall that application, what will happen?
It will again ask for uh,
Exactly. So implicit intent.
But- so, matlab, when we ask for what you told browser, is this the
Mhm.
work of Android to set the default browser, or means that app will have access to set the default browser?
It is up
I
to you to set the default browser. Like if my phone has one browser, then only that will open, right? And if my phone has four browsers, then Android will ask you which app do you want to use. So it is up to you which one you want. And if you select a default browser, let's say you have selected Chrome as your default browser, then that means that Android it is not set by Android, it is set by you. You have set Chrome as your default browser. So whenever a request comes to open a URL, it will automatically open Chrome without asking you.
no, no, I got that, but is this the privilege of that app that it will set the browser, or I mean, was for
No, the app will not set
no,
the.
no.
It is Android.
For example, if we click a link on Facebook and we
Mhm.
use Chrome as our always use this. Suppose we will
Okay.
open another link in Discord or Instagram, then it will also open that link in that in that browser when we use always
Yeah.
set
It
this.
yes yes. If you
So
have set the browser as your default browser, every link will open in that particular browser.
yeah, so what was this telling that the link will be sent to the Android cell or subsystem, which I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not the function of
The
the
link
app to.
no, it is the link will directly be sent to that other application that you select.
Okay, okay.
Android subsystem that tells that if I have this particular thing, you can have these four options. That's what it will just show the path. It will not take any data.
Okay, okay, okay. I got that.
All right. Okay. So let me start Android Studio, and I would request everyone to do the same. Let me know if you can see my screen.
yes, we it's
Yeah, it's
visible.
visible.
All right. So as usual, we start with a new project. You can tap on empty activity, give it a name. I'll give it session 3. Select Kotlin and select your minimum is SDK as you prefer. And then you can start building the project.
Did you just stop sharing?
No, no. I again started it. Like, you can see my screen now, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if I can start. Like my build is finished now. So if everyone is ready, then I'll start.
I think we can start here.
All right. So okay. First of all, I'll go through some very important basics. Like the first thing you need to do after you create a project is know what your requirements are for this particular application. First thing, enable view binding. So how it's done? If you remember, I told you view binding is done in your build.gradle file, right? So where to find it? So let me just start again. In Android, we have two main folders. In the left side, just focus here on the project panel. You will have an application part and a Gradle script part, right? In the application part, you will have three folders. That is the one is resources, where all your application resources go in. In drawable, you will have your anything, your assets like image asset, any type of icon that you use in your application will go into the drawable file. Like let's say the menu button, the three dot menu button, or the home icon of an application, the search icon of every icon will go into the drawable folder. And you create a new icon by right clicking on drawable, new vector asset, and here you can see you can just if you have a local file, then you can click on local file and you can uh, go into that. And if you use a clip art, then Android Studio has tons of clip art already preloaded for Android. You can use any of those and you can add them to your application. The layout file contains all your activity, all your applications layout files. Like by default, the activity main is already created with a hello world text view in the middle. In the mipmap folder, your application's icons, app icon would be there, like the icon on which you will tap to open the application. Those will be there, and it will be of many types to support. Like you can see, HDPI, MDPI, XHDPI. This is just there to support different types of screen sizes and resolutions, so that you'll have an icon for every type without it getting blurry or faded. And the last would be values, where you'll have a colors.xml file. In colors.xml file, all your applications colors are defined here using a hexacode. So, and you can also name a color here. Like for in default, we have these sample colors like purple 200 would mean this particular value. And of course, for your application, when you want to create your own application, you can add in your own color. Like in the same format, let's just say I want to add something red. So I'll do it red, and then I'll put in the hexadecimal value. So for red, like it's RGB, right? So sorry, okay, I've done it blue, RGB. So if I do this, and then you can see the left side, a red color is shown. But you don't always need to remember this. You can always click on the color that is shown in the left side, like here, and you can always set a custom resource. Like you can drag it, you can use any type of color that you want. It is not at all limited. And so that's how this happens. In strings.xml, all your applications string files will be there. In the last session, we learned that how to not hard code text, right? So whenever you solve that error, That string is actually added here in the strings.xml file, and its reference is used in instead of the actual text. Like in here, let's in my hello world, if I want the application, let me zoom in. If I want the application's name to be displayed here, so as you know, in the attributes we have a hello world. You can see this, right? So instead of hello world, if I just type the application name, like it's ASJ session 3 for me, it can be different for you. But instead of like repeatedly typing the whole name and remembering it, I can save it in my strings.xml like it's already done. Like ASJ session 3 is saved with the name of app name. So whenever I use this extract like app name, then this will be its value. Just consider it as a variable and its value. So if here instead of hello world, just I just start typing app, it will automatically show that I have a string resource at string slash app name. And if I type in enter, then you can see it shows my application's name instead of actual app. It's as the application name. So that's how strings work. And again, in the theme file, we have two files, one for the day mode and the night mode. We won't be covering night mode, but it's pretty easy to use. And once you complete the units, you will understand how to enable night mode if you want. So what XML does is that it sets the theme of your whole application in general. Like in applications, we have something called as the primary color and the secondary color and its accents. So this is how you do it. Like for me, my application's primary color is purple 500. This purple 500 has, again, it doesn't use the actual value. I can if I want, but it's not it's not recommended, because if you need to use that color resource in the night theme also, you again have to type in the whole hexacode. Instead, you define the code here in purple 500. I have defined it, and then I can use it anywhere. Like in color 500, I use it directly. So purple 500 would be my application's primary color. Similarly, the primary variant, we have color on primary, secondary color, everything is already set. But this is just for example. After resources, you will have your Java file, where the first file is where you will actually do your coding. And by default, you'll have your main activity. This is where you will start. I'll get here after I finish the go through. And okay, the last part is manifest. And your manifest is nothing but contains all the metadata of your application. It contains all the metadata of your application. Like if I go in, it's an XML file, but as you can see, it has some uh, it has the value for my icon, like what icon my application will use, what will be the label, like the display, the text that will be shown in the below the application. uh, it will have the theme for the application, and it will also contain the activity. This is one whole activity with the name of main activity, because for now I have only one activity. Today when we'll create another activity, we'll be doing that, like another screen. So you will see that the manifest will be updated accordingly. And it is the main activity that always starts first when you create an application. And it also happens because of this particular code. As you can see, it has it is also a type of intent, an implicit intent called as Android intent category launcher. You don't have to remember it, but just know that in whichever application you have this launcher thing saved, it will the application will start with that particular activity. All right. Once the application part is done, we now come to the Gradle part. In Gradle, you just have to know about two things that we'll always use. We have two build.gradle files. Uh, you can see it, right? Do I need to like make the text bigger?
We can see.
Hello, you can see
We
it,
can see.
right?
We can see.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can see it. We can see it.
So in build.gradle, you have two files, but these are very different files. One is the project level, and another is module level. Level refers to your whole project, like the entirety of your application. Then, if you can open it, and then you will see these are some predefined codes. For now, you don't have to change anything here. But what we have to do is in the module file, in the module part of our build.gradle, you will see all. Suppose you have a starting of an application, right? Every application starts with version 1.0. Suppose you want to update your application. Whenever you like you code something, you put it on Play Store, and you want to update your application. When you do that, all you have to do is change it from 1.0 to 1. Or whatever you, however you want it. So when you do that, the version accordingly changes. You have your target SDK that is 31. You have a minimum SDK of 28. These are all predefined, like, and you may have it different from me because I am using Android 9 as my minimum SDK. Now, in here, you'll see something
Here,
called dependencies, where
if we
yeah,
change if we want to change the SDK, so we have to rebuild the app.
you don't have to yes, you definitely have to rebuild, because what will happen is, suppose my application is using Android 9 as its minimum, right? So this particular application won't run on Android 8 devices. Suppose some new features have come into Android 9. So what will happen if I try to run the same feature on Android 8, like if I reduce the minimum SDK, I code it like that, it will not work because maybe that feature was not implemented for Android 8. So then you'll have to use a workaround. You'll have to add an if condition, like if the version code, it will be done in your main Kotlin file. You can do something. We have something like that. It's called like if my device version code is greater than let's Oreo, then use this functionality, else use the other functionality. Like that's how it will happen. But this I would prefer you not use any of this and you not change the SDK values from here. It may uh, give rise to some unwanted errors. Okay, coming to the dependencies. So these are some of the predefined dependencies. But suppose we want to add more functionality to our application, we will always have to use some dependencies. Like let's say suppose we want to use some database, some backend database for Firebase. We want to use Firebase. So we'll have to add the dependency here. Like you'll go into the Firebase documentation, you will get the dependency, you'll paste it here, then you'll sync your project, and then Firebase will be added to your project. That's how it will work. Okay, now comes the part. Okay, now that I have told you all about the navigation part, just now the first thing I told you we need to do is add the view binding feature, right? So you do it in your build.gradle module file that is here itself. And how do you do that? You there's an Android part. You'll see there's an Android section, and after there are curly braces, and it closes here. Before it's closing, you go there and you need to type a bit of code. So what you need to do is just follow along. You need to type in build features. You don't have to type the whole thing. Auto completion will always help you. Like you see build features right here. You press enter. Remove these parentheses, and instead of it, just add some curly braces. And inside it, you can just do something called as view binding. You can see again, it's auto completing for me. I'll do view binding equals to true. That's it. And now you can see in a top a banner has popped up saying that a sync may be necessary. So now again I'll just press on sync now. It will again take some time to load, and now you can okay, now the loading is complete, and now view binding is added to my project. This is how you add that feature of view binding to every project. And I would suggest in every project you do this thing because it is the only recommended thing to use right now. And don't use find view by ID. It's a very traditional way. Okay. I hope everyone is clear with it, like how to use enable view binding. If you're having
Yes.
any problem, then you can just say it right now. Just make sure you put it in the right Gradle file.
So
Okay.
we have where we can add the starting animation of the app or starting like page and the
Starting
icon pop up.
pop-up, I didn't understand you. Can you
Like
repeat?
the when we open a YouTube app or something, there is a pop up like the icon is there, the flat screen. This is the launching animation.
Okay, you are telling me whenever you open YouTube, the red logo that
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
first, it is again a screen. It is a different screen. That's it. So what happens is it is called as a splash activity, that the splash screen of our application. It is not enabled by default. What you will have to do is you only have main activity, right? What you need to do is you again need to create a new activity, create a new screen, and in the manifest file, if you want that page to load first, I'll teach you that. Don't worry. Like I'll give you a brief animation, brief of how you can do it. Just remind me at the end. Okay.
sure. Yeah.
So okay. So now let's get started for the coding part, like how we can design something. And first, we'll see how to create a layout in our application. We'll go into our layout file. I'll close all the other part. Okay. Here I have my layout part. In my layout, there's only a text view in the middle and nothing else. In the top right, you can see we have three parts: the coding part, the split, and the design. For now, you can use the design tab where you just drag and drop things and you like uh, put them in a flexible way. But as you progress, I would suggest that you use the split mode. That's what I used, and you code the things like the text view that you see here. Let me zoom in. The text view that you see here, its whole code is right here. This is the part where the text view like they can be seen. You can see it has all the features, like it has a width of wrap content. It is exactly the attribute section that you had seen in the design tab. I can also enable the attribute part. You can just for starting, you can use this. Like we have a width of wrap content. You guys know what wrap content is, right? It will just wrap the height and width will be just enough to wrap whatever enough for whatever it has inside. Like if my app name is ASJ session 3, then it will just be big enough to fit this text. Again, you can see in the right, I have layout width and layout height at wrap content. And that is exactly what this coding part also suggests. Along with it, I have a text attribute that is in the left side, you can see text, and the right side also you can see it is text that has my app name. It is exactly how we do it. And this is the constraint part. Before doing the constraint, I want to say that we have constraint is the root layout. Like you can see, text view is inside this constraint, inside this root view. If I open my component tree, you will have a better understanding. You can see first there is a constraint layout. Below that there is a text view, right? So how this happens is the constant layout is the root of our root view. Like whatever we put inside the constant layout will be part of that page. So now we have basically we use three types of views. We have constant layout one, we have relative layout, and we have linear layout. These are three main part. If you want, we can use all of them. Well, like you can see in the palette we have linear layout, and we can also use relative layout. Let me just tell you what each type of layout does, but we'll be mainly working with constant layout today because it is very easy to use once you get the hang of it, and it can be very flexible, like how you want it. However, we'll also see how linear layout works. Let me just say you for now. What linear layout will do is it will just if the whole thing is a linear layout, like instead of constant layout, if I use linear layout, it will always ask me for an orientation, like how do you want it? Should it be vertical or should it be horizontal? If you select a horizontal, then each and every item that you put inside that linear layout will be stacked beside each other. You cannot move them up or down. It will always be stacked from left to right or right to left in a horizontal direction. Similarly, if you use a vertical, then it will always be stacked on top of or below each other. Like again, there's no setting the layout. Like it won't be a very flexible way. In relative layout, what you do is you like suppose you have a button here. Like suppose I have a text view right here, and I want to use another text view, so I drag it again here. So if I drag the text view, and if I am using relative layout, then to define its position, we always have to define a position of our element in our screen. So in relative layout, we have to state how the particular new item will be related to anything. Like if I can put it on top of the first text view, put it below the first text view. So we use relative layout for that. But after all of that, the only common thing you will find is like the most used will be constant layout because it will be very easy to implement once you get the hang of it. And using it with I'm telling you this because using it with the code part, exactly, like you put it in split, you can see what's happening in the screen, the preview part, along with what's happening in the code. I'll do it right now in front of you. Let's say we want the first starting page. It's activity main.xml, right? So we'll be starting with the first layout of our application. So what I'll do is in this text view, I'll first of all I'll change the text. I'll just change the text. I'm doing it on the coding part, like so that you get a hang of it. If you want, you can also change it in the attribute part, right here, the text part. If I change it here, it will be reflected in the left side. It doesn't matter. But I'll change it in the text part. Inside double quotes, I'll just say that it is page 1 because we'll be adding another page. So right for now, I'll put it as page 1. You can see, and it's page 1, and you can see again in the right side also the attribute has changed to page 1. Now, again you can see that it shows error. Like if I hover my mouse over it, it says that hard-coded string should use at string resource. Again, it's hard-coded, right? So what you need to do is just click on this extract string resource and press OK. It will automatically create a resource value that is page 1. The value is page 1 that we used, and it is automatically giving us a recommended name called page_1. If I just tap on OK, and now if I go into my strings.xml file, you can see that page 1 is added now, and it has the value of page 1, right? And now the error is gone. Okay, so to just use a very basic kind of layout, let me just quickly tell you how to use constraint layout. So what constraint layout will do is, constraint layout is simply will tell how to each element will have 4 attach points. Like you can see the 4 circles, that is top, bottom, the left or the start, and the right or the end part. So now you can see in the coding part, I'll be focusing on the coding part. It will be easier to understand. Layout constraint, bottom to bottom of parent. Just imagine parent as the root view. Like this constraint layout, this is the root view. So when I say the bottom to bottom of parent, what it means that this bottom anchor point of this text view will be constrained to the bottom of the parent. You can see an arrow mark here. Similarly, left to left of parent, right to right of parent, and top to top of parent. It is already predefined. Like it, that's because that's how you can see all the 4 anchor points connected to the parent. Will change it soon. So what we are going to do is we will remove this bottom part. This bottom anchor point will remove this. I'll just remove this line of code, constant bottom to bottom part. If I just remove it, you can see that something changed, right? So, okay. So can anyone explain me what suddenly changed in this thing? Just can anyone just give me a brief idea of why the page one text went up the moment I
Since
removed?
since there was a constant given from the bottom, a default one, we removed it so
Yeah.
the image moved up.
Okay, but why did it move up? Why did it not move down
There is
or
nothing
left or
anchoring it with the bottom.
exactly? So you can say that, but what the answer is that you can see this anchor point now became white, blank, and now we have three. We still have three, like the left part, we have the right part, and we have the top part. So just imagine like these are magnets. Like if you remove the bottom magnet, it will or just go to the top to which it was anchoring to. Okay, just tell me what will happen if I remove the left part. If I remove the left to left of parent, what will happen to the view?
It
It
will
will
go
move
to
to
the
right.
right.
Exactly, it will go to the right. You can see it went to the right. So that's how constant layouts can be fun, right? Once I add more views, you can it'll be fun. Just let me put the line again, left to left of parent. Now, how do I bring it downward? Like, can anyone suggest some ideas?
Add the bottom and remove the top.
No, I just want it to be here, like in the middle part, not fully down. I just want to
Remove the
be it
top.
here. No, what we'll do is we'll constrain it to the top part, but we'll add some margins. That's where margin comes in. Like now I can add the code right here. Like I press the enter, I come to a new line, and I'll start typing. Like just autocorrect is really useful here. But if you want, you can also use that same thing in the right part. You can see here we have some constraint. Like you can see left, top, and right. We have some bit, but for the bottom part, we don't have anything. That's because I removed the bottom part, right? So either you can add your like if I tap on the arrow button, you can see we have some values. We have some values here, and we have some values for the top, left, right. Either I can directly add the value here, or what I can do is I can add it in the code. For now, I'll not add it in the code. I'll add it from the attribute panel to have a better understanding. Now I'll just change it from 0 to let's say 96, and then I tap enter. You can see something changed again. It came a little bit downward, and what it has is now it's 96 dp. No, it has a top margin of 96 dp. You can see the code is added automatically. Margin top 96 dp. So that's how you add some margin, and I don't have to add left or right because it's already constrained to left and right equally to the parent. Okay, now let's just make this thing a little bigger to understand. I can use this for now. I'll be using the attribute panel, but for the second page, I'll be using the coding part. So here I have a text appearance. You can see a text appearance. Here, if I tap on like let's say large, you can see the code changes. But for now, I'll not be using code. But again, in the preview panel, that page one changes. Similarly, I'll be using display one. Now you can see it's much bigger. Either you can use text appearance or you can use something called as text size attribute. If you use the text size attribute, but mind it, it will always be fixed size. It will not be dependent on your display. So it's recommended to use text appearance, but if you don't want to use, you can always use SP part. And yes, for text size, it's always in S form of SP, like scalable pixels. Don't worry about that. That's done now. If I again tap on this attribute, I'll change the color. You can change the color of your text here. Text color. You have an attribute. Again, you can see you can choose anything, like for anything you want. You can see on the left side, I am always getting an attribute of text color got added. Let's say I want to go with this color. You can see the color change to some purple type. And now let's make it a bit bold. So text style, I'll enable this bold icon. So you can see now the page one looks bigger, and you can see these attributes have been added right now. You can see text appearance, text color, text style, everything has appeared. Now all that is left is how will I access this particular file? How will I? Okay, now we have done it. We'll go to that later. Now let's add a button to this thing. So to add a button, you go into palette, you drag in a button here. And now again, you can see the button has 4 constraints, right? The top, bottom, start, and the end. What I'll do is I want this button below my text view. How will you do that? It's simple. What you can do is, it's very fun. Like in the editor part, you drag it, you drag the top anchor and join the top anchor to the bottom of the to the bottom of the text view. So now you can see it that got attached to the first. I'll drag the start to the parent. You can see the code is changing here, like start to start of parent, top to bottom of text view. And if I add a constant to the right, it will come into the center. Now again, I'll give this a top margin again. So here, I'll give it, let's say 64 dp. All right. But how did it attach to the page one? Let's just see. Right here, you can see in the coding part, the top is the constant top to bottom of. Like just follow the English, top to bottom. So the top anchor point is connected to the bottom of this particular ID. Here's when ID comes in, like ID of text view. So which element, you just have to see which element has the ID of text views. You can see we have in the previous text view, we have an ID tag and it has an ID of text view. If it has an ID of text view, so that's how it got to know the name. And if I change the text view ID, like I just select it here in the coding part, and there's a TV page one. If I change it, you can immediately see Android Studio popping me up with an error. Like this line became red, and it is saying that ID text view is not defined. That's because when I changed this from text view to TV page one, this did not change. I'll also have to change this thing. So if I again, you can see the autocorrect is working, auto completion, and if I tap it, it's again done. So that's how you add constant. Constants are very fun to use once you get the hang of it. Next, we'll be editing this button a bit. Like you can see the text part of this button is only button. We'll change it to call something like tap me. And I'll just add the string resource. Done. So now the button is created and the first page is created. And again, this button also has some ID. You can also set the ID here, but I'll change it here, like from button to BTN. Let's say tap me. I gave it a name of tap me. Now this part is done. Now what we'll do is, let's start writing some code in the main activity. In the main activity, we'll go into the main activity part. And you'll see that we all have some predefined code. And as I said, we have something called
Bhaiya,
yeah.
in the last class when we had a trouble, you gave us two layouts, constraint bottom to bottom of parents. I got that.
Mhm.
But what about the second constraint end to end of parent? What does that
End to
do?
end means this one. Like the end part means the right part to the end
Yeah.
of parent, like the right part of the parent. It's exactly, you can see end to end of parent. The right part is constrained to the right of the parent, and the start part, the end of parent means the parent view. The like you can see all this button and text view is constrained within this root layout. That is the constraint layout. This is called the parent layout.
Okay, okay,
It,
got that.
it is automatically referenced as parent. So when you do it as parent, it will just go to the right of the screen. And here also one thing I forgot to mention, you have the layout width and height, right? So what if I change from wrap content to something called as a match parent? You can see it will cover the entire width of your display. So that's how this thing will work. I'll again change it. And also you can also set the width and height to some custom DP. Let's say I'll use 100 DP. So it will do it 100 DP. If I set it to 200 DP, it will set it to 200 DP. For now, I'll be using wrap content. All right, now coming to the activity. We learned something called as the activity lifecycle. Again, now you can see this is okay. First, you can see that there is no access specifier in this class, like no public private, because by default, Kotlin takes it as public, not private like Java. So this is public class, and here you have a function called as onCreate. We learned about onCreate. That is where the code actually starts executing from, right? So this is the onCreate function that's already given to us. What we'll do is, first of all, we'll need to connect this activity Kotlin file with this layout file. We need to access these two things. How we'll access it? Like we'll use the IDs, but that's where view binding will come in. View binding will help us to identify these two IDs and access these elements. We'll go into our Kotlin file, and here first we'll initialize it. Like we will give it an access space of private, and we use something called as late init in Kotlin because that's a guarantee that we will be initializing this value in this code. So like it won't be null. If you don't do it, then it will show you an error. Like you have to initialize it now. So always do this. Var binding, and I will give it a name of binding. And now it will always ask me of a type. Now, as you can see, it is already suggesting me to use binding. You can you know how you declare variables, right? A type is activity main binding. I told you it will automatically create a class called of binding object, and that is what it's suggesting me to use activity main binding type, and that is automatically created the moment I'll use activity main binding because my name was activity main.xml. So that's its binding object is activity main binding. The naming convention is like that. So it is automatically created and I just have to use it, and it's of a late init type. So I'll initialize it now in my on create. On every code you start, it starts with on create. So before set content view line, set content view, what will done? It will set the layout of your application. I think it is already saying r.layout.activity main, but we won't be using that. It's a traditional method. What we'll do is we'll first initialize the binding object. How we'll do it? Before it's set content view, I'll go into a new line and I'll initialize it. Binding equals, and you go activity main. You will have three functions. We'll go to inflate, and then we'll just type in layout inflator. That's it. Now your binding is inflated. Like your binding variable knows has all the elements that you have used in your XML file. And we'll also change this set content view to our binding dot root file. That means the layouts root file. So now what this will do, now if I run my application, I'll start running it. What will happen is it will show me this page the moment I see open my application. But now nothing will happen as there is no functionality right now. So let the emulator begin. But until then, we can start writing our code. After you set the content, like to binding.root, you can start accessing these elements. Let me just say I want to add some. Okay, wait, let it run. Let me just say that you want to add some functionality to our button, right? So how to do that? What you can do is you will tap on binding, and you will have a dot, and then you can see it is suggesting me two IDs, and it is already telling me it's a button type. One is a button type, and one is a text view type. That is when the type safety comes in of view binding. Here, what happens is if I want to use the button, then I had given it an ID of btn tap me. So I'll use that. I'll use btn tap me. You can see the page starts showing up, but now we won't be using it, and nothing will happen if I tap on the button right now. What I'll do is binding.btn tap me, and let's say I want something to happen when I click on it. So we have a dot function for it, like dot set on. The moment you type it set on, the auto completion comes in, and inside these parentheses, you can write the code. You can write the code for button tap. Here, what I'll do is I'll implement a toast function, toast message. In Kotlin, again, this is a normal comment. Like you just use two forward slashes and it's a comment line. So what you should do is for displaying a toast message, just see what I'm doing, just follow along. You just type in capital T and toast, and you complete it, toast dot, just make text, and it will ask for three arguments, like one is context, one is char sequence, and as another is the duration. So first, for the application context, we just have to type in application context, comma, the sequence that, let's just say I want a particular message to be shown. So I'll just say button tapped, and then I'll give it a duration. Duration, you give it by toast dot length short dot show function. This show function will be like now this particular toast will start showing up. So now if I again run the application, you will see a toast message, and I'm sure the toast message is very familiar with you guys. Like everyone can run the application till now, because now after this toast message, we'll be learning how to add another screen, another activity or screen onto our application. Now, as you can see, if I tap the button, what will happen is a button tapped message is shown in bottom, and it will again go back after a short duration because I've set it to length short. And that is exactly a toast message. This is how a toast message works. This is how a toast message works in Android. Like I'm sure you must have already all seen this at some point in an application. So this is useful for debugging or letting the user know if something is wrong. A toast message can have various functionalities. Now you know how to. Now if I set on-click listener function, that on-click listener function is what will be called every time you tap on the button, and all of these functionalities goes in the on-create part of our application. Now let me say that I want to add another screen, like the next part. The last part is adding intent and using another screen. What first I need to do is create another screen. To create another screen, what I'll do is go into my Java folder, into my package name, and here I see main activity. We only have one activity. To add another activity, you right click, new, you have an activity section, and then again, I'll use an empty activity. An empty activity, I'll give it a layout of page 2 or a better second page, and finish. Now you can see a new activity is created called as second page.kt file, and its corresponding XML file is also generated, like activity second page.xml, and it's added here. It's main activity, and then I have my second page. Now, suppose I want to go to the second page. For now, second page has no element. If I can split it, you can see it only has a constant layout, but inside it, it has nothing. It's a blank screen for now. Now, again, I'll just add a text view to it. Like I'll quickly add a text view. I'll use the same text view for what I used here. I'll just copy this code and put it here. Now what you can see is page one is displayed here, but I need to change some aspects of this. Like let me say I want to change, first of all, I want to change the text part. Like from page one, it will go to page, it will display as page two. Again, I'll add the string resource. And I also have to change its ID. It's not TV page one. Instead of I'll put it as TV page two. And now we have something called as second page, and this will be the layout just for understanding purposes. Now, if I want to go to this page, I'll have to use something called as an intent, and I'll also add a button that upon clicking on it, I'll go to the second page. It's that, like I'll drag in a button. I'll give it constraints, like I'll put it below the tap me button and give it starting and ending constraints. Done. I'll change its text from button to go to page two. And also we can also change the background, the color of an puzzle for better visualization. I'll just enter another attribute called as background tint. So I'll just start background and it will automatically start completing my code. So background tint, and I'll give it a color of, let's say, teal 700. You can see the color has changed. And now I'll just give it a top margin because it's packed with the tap me button. I'll give it a top again. To give it a top margin, instead in the attribute panel, I'll just tap top, start writing top, and you can see it's giving me some suggestions. Like I have layout margin top, I have padding top. I'll use margin top, and I'll again give it like 16 dp. All right. Now it looks a little better. Again, I'll also change the ID of it. Like I'll change it to BTN uh, page two. Like this button will say to go to page two. That's it. I change into my, and now I want that if I tap on this button, my second page should open up. So to do that, I'll go into my main activity.kotlin file. And for my second button, I'll set the on click listener. And to do that, I'll have to refer to it first from the binding object. And now you can see my BTN page 2 starts appearing here. That is how easy it is to use view binding. You don't have to add any extra code. You don't have to manually add that I have added a button. And you have some function called set on long click listener. And now it's where I'll use intent. Like this will be a type of explicit intent. To do this, first we'll have to select a type of intent that we want. It will be a val type. I'll give it a name of intent. And you apply an intent for something like this. Like you create an intent. It's showing red because I have to import that class. To import it, click on import. And then from here, I want to say from which activity to which activity it wants to go. Like for explicit intent, I have to specify the destination. So from this, that is this current page, to my, I have it named as second page. So I'll type in second page. And the syntax goes something like this, like class.java. So now whenever this intent will navigate me from this particular page to second page. That is the page I just created. And to go to it, and the function is start activity. So I'll just use start activity, and I'll pass my intent. That's it. That's all you need to do to make your application go from one page to another. So now if I again run the app, you will see that the new button will be added, and on clicking it, the second page will open. And that is how you, and that is like how the first page will go into the background, and the second page will come over it. Like it will be on top of the activity stack. So if I press on go to page 2, you see I'm right now in page 2 of my application. Like right now, this code is getting executed. The second page is on create function got executed, and this page is now shown to me. And here, if I want to add some functionalities, I can do them. Like let's just say in here, the last thing we will do for today is adding a implicit intent. So again, it's very easy. What I'll do is I'll just show you how to open a browser link from a particular URL. I'll just add quickly a button here, and I'll give it some constraints again. I hope everyone is getting this constraint part. It is really important to understand this. And if you understand it instead from the attribute panel, if you understand it from the coding part, like constant end to end of parent, start to start, it's very easy to like know what exactly happens here. That's why I'm showing you the layout, the coding part of this XML alongside.
Yeah, what to do if we want to make a transition between page one and page two, like
For yeah, you
screen.
can always add we have something called as animation mutants that when you implement your custom animations when you want to go from one page to another, we have something like that.
Okay.
And we won't be covering it, but in the future we will be definitely using navigation components, which you can use to implement animations even in a very easier way. Like you can let them know which animation to use in this action. We'll learn it in the future sessions. I'll just still you can see that this button is showing me an error. Like there's a red line here. It is saying that the view is not constant vertically. So what will happen is I'll have to add something at the top or bottom. I'll for now I'll instead of the top part I'll concentrate to the bottom. It'll go down, and now to bring it a little up, what I'll do is I'll use a bottom margin attribute, like bottom margin, and I'll give it a value of 200 dp. Let's say 200 dp. Done. I'll also change its ID to BTN. Let's say I want to open a website. I'll name it BTN website, and I'll give it a text. Like the text is already there, but I'll change it from button to let's say I'll open Instagram. So open Instagram. None. Now what this button should do is on clicking it, it should go to open Instagram, like open my browser and go into instagram.com. So how we'll do that? So we'll use an implicit intent for it. I'll go into my second page Kotlin file. Again, here you can see the binding object is created, but it's not been used. First of all, I'll implement that binding object for this particular file. Again, private, late in it. I'll again name it binding. And now you can see it's automatically suggests me I have two binding objects, activity main and activity second page. For now, I'll use activity second page. Then again, initialize it before the set content view part. Inflate with my layout inflator. And replace this r.layout.activity second page with my binding.root object. Done.
Bhaiya,
Now, yeah,
what is the difference between in which the default there is a binding, and I have tried in the Dice app, it worked, but you are
mhm.
telling it to bind in different. What's the difference?
Binding. I didn't get your
No,
question.
no. Yeah, when I created the Dice app, I didn't did what you are doing like binding now. I just made the default like set content view add.layout.activity main, and it worked.
Right. It will work for
Then
now, but again, I said you have to manually use it. But if right now I have just a button in my layout. If I have some, let's say, more items, you'll have to manually add them. If for each and every button you add, you'll have to write a particular code like find view by ID. Then you'll have to do stuff like that, which is just very redundant. And if you forget to initialize it, then it will be a null value. And you will be trying to access it in some other place, but it will show you error and the application will crash. For now, it will work, but for some production level applications, always use view binding.
yeah, I
We have
used
to
find view by ID method. I used that. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
it now.
yeah, it's a very redundant thing. So avoid doing
in
that.
every new project we have to define the binding view.
Yeah, in every
Okay.
view, you will first have to access it, and then I have one button, right? It's btn website. To access it, I'll simply use binding dot btn website dot set. Also, instead of on click listener, we have something called as a long click listener. Instead, you want to tap and hold it. So what would happen then? You also have that functionality. Okay, I'll just do it quickly because the time is running out. So we have something called a set in. Now what should happen when I click on set on click listener for my btn website? It will be implicit intent, and what it should do is first I'll set my URL. So I'll just simply add a URL for Instagram. You can use it for anything, like anything you want. If you want to test it out, it's no issue. And then I'll create my intent. Once I have my URL, well, let me name it website intent. Okay, and now I'll again use that intent property, and inside that, remember last time what I did was I transformed it from this to main activity to second page, right? Here, I use this thing. So what this suggests that it is an explicit intent. But for implicit intent, we don't have a destination. What we'll do here is we will we will just specify the action it needs to do, the action which it needs to complete. So how we will do that? We'll again type in intent, and then you can see we have some, if after the dot operator we have some particular actions. You can see there are tons of action, like we have action view, dial, call, send. Whenever you tap on a send on a share button on your phone, like suppose you are viewing a photo from a gallery and you're tapping on the share button, a share menu comes up, right? Like to choose which app you want to share it on. That is used using this action send intent. Suppose you want to call, like there's a call button on the when you book a ride or a Uber or Ola. So it's used from the action dial or call. And suppose you want to view a website, so we'll use this action view. We'll use this, and in the next line, we'll set a URI. We'll have to send some data with it with this intent, right? The URL. So how you'll do is you give it a URI equals to URI dot pass, and inside this pass, you'll pass your URL, which should be a string type. And after you do this, you just set the type of this intent, like the type of this website intent you just created. So website intent dot data, like passing the data, right? So data equals to this URI that you just created. So for this intent data, you use this URI value, and that URI has our URL. For different for different intents, it will be a different type of code. Like, but you can always get it from documentations. Like there are tons of documentations from the official document. You'll get what intents, how different intents can be used for your particular functions. And now again, after I have set my data, I just have to start activity and then pass my website intent. Done. So now if I run the app again, what this should do is it will open Instagram from my browser. Like my phone has only one browser now, that is Chrome. So in my emulator there is only one browser. First I'll go to page 2, and here if I tap on open Instagram, you can see it jumped from one application to another, a part of intent that I just showed you, and it opened Instagram.com. If you have many browsers, then it will ask you first which browser do you want to use, and then it will start in that browser. So this is how you use an intent. Also, suppose you want to pass data from one page to another. Like from my main activity, I want to pass some data along with the intent. So you can easily do it. Like we had intent here, this second page class.java. With this intent, like this is some extra thing. Like we can put extra values. Like you can see it acts like a key value pair. You put a value here and you send it, and in the second page you can extract the value right here. You can always learn this in your the developer course that you are currently doing. You will be teaching, you will be learning more than this. So the last part of today is done, and for now I'll just show you, like for activity lifecycle, like we had on create, right? How you will invoke the other functions like the on start, resume, destroy. How you do this? What you can do is you can just start. First of all, you can just start on writing like on. Let's say I want to give it on restart. So if I just tap on here, you can see that auto completion is giving me a suggestion. I'll just tap it, and you can see I'm overriding the on restart function right now. So right now, if I restart my application, if I go back, if I restart this thing, then this function will be executed. Similarly, you have all the other function like on start, you have on start, you have on resume. Everything is there. If you want to just override them, you can do it. All right. So the last thing is one person asked how to put a splash screen, right? So I'll tell you in the last. So if you go into the manifest file, you will see that first we had one activity. We had this thing only. But now we have a second activity too. That is the second page that we just created. The manifest is updated as we update our project. So here you can see this part is what defines our launcher file. This intent filter, whatever inside. Let's suppose, let me just cut this code here. I'll just cut it from here. I'll give it an ending tag. Okay, inside, I'll put that code inside the second page. Now what will happen is if I run my application, this is just for like example. If I run this application here, suppose this second page was your splash page. So what will happen is now whenever my application will run, it will start from the second page. So you can see my application starts from the second page right now. So this is some advanced thing, and you will learn how to do this once. And suppose you're using a splash activity, what you can do is start with the splash activity and then give it a timer, let's say 3 seconds. And then using an explicit intent, navigate to your main activity, to your home page. You can do it like that. So with this, we are done with the live demo part. I hope everything is clear. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me right now, because at last I'll be sharing with you a link and I'll be asking you to share your developer profiles after this session. So if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask me right now.
Which pathways will you be completing after this session?
Which?
Pathways in the course.
For now, it will remain the same because I'll be sending the link for sharing the developer profiles. So for now, it will remain the same for everyone. You need to pathway 1 and 2. You will need to finish up till that.
So I have a simple doubt out of the box. That what
Yeah.
hardware do you use? That KIIT one, KIIT laptop. or else
What?
what hardware do you use for?
Yeah, I'm
And
using KIIT laptop right
okay,
now.
okay,
Yes, I'm using KIIT laptop right now.
i7, is that i7 processor?
Is that
i7 processor.
I?
Processor.
Is it?
Processor.
It's i5 8 Gen.
All right, all right. So I think Ryzen
Okay,
will work. Ryzen 7.
it will work. Your first year student will work.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so for now, again, it's the same for you, like Unit 1 complete and Unit 2 Pathway 1 and 2. And the next session again will be day after tomorrow. And I'll be taking that session. And then we will be learning a very important part, something called as a recycler view. It is one of the advanced topics, and it is mostly it is used in all major applications like the WhatsApp. It's exactly like a scroll list. Like the thing you scroll on Instagram, anything that you scroll is a part of a recycler view, and it's a very tricky thing to use. So I would suggest to pay attention to it, and everyone be present on 17th December. And after this session, this is the link. I'll be sharing with you the link in the chat box also. Complete Unit 1 and Unit 2, Pathway 1 and 2. And the last date to submit these would be on 20th December. And I'll share the link right now.
We also do share it in the Discord. It will be easier if you lost it.
Yes, we will definitely be sharing that along with the recordings and all the mm, other video recordings, also with the PPT. I'll be sharing them soon once it's uploaded.
Will you be getting a mail for this, or we have to save this link right now?
The link I have first of all shared in the chat box, in the Google Meet chat box. You can take it from there. You can save it. Also, the link will be there in the Discord ASJ announcement channel. So you can pick it up from there. But the last date to submit the badges would be on 20th. On 20th, the response, I'll close the response, and on 20th we'll have another session, and that would be on some important component part of Android, like some you'll learn some advanced stuff. And after that session, we will be exactly halfway through our event, and I will be sharing with you another link on 20th, and then you will have to submit the badges corresponding to what would be what has the up till the halfway point. So that I guess that would be Unit 3. But for now, you just need to complete Unit 2, Pathway 1 and Pathway 2.
We have just a
Uh,
simple question. We
yeah.
have to give a exam after that Associate Android Developer exam. I know it's optional,
Yeah.
but have we appeared that exam?
No, you don't have to appear that exam, but if you do and you pass, then you'll get a reimbursement of like 80% of $120. So that's a huge thing.
Have
Bhaiya,
you appeared the test?
Not yet,
Okay.
but
Bhaiya, I
I'll
had
write.
a question. For the profile, can we use that short version g.dev/ our username?
You just to get the profile link, what you can do is you go into the profile, and there you will have under your name you'll have a button to copy your link, right? You can definitely paste the short link, but it should work provided.
Yeah,
And
it's
make sure
working.
that your developer profile is public so that we can see it and track it accordingly. It should not be private.
Yeah, sure.
And after 20th, we will give you some time, and we'll also make announcement for the app. We'll make further announcement, like some special announcement will be there on 20th. And after that, you will be getting about a week before your next session. So two more sessions, and then you will getting a break, and you will be getting some time to create some ideas and uh, start collecting your badges. So for now, I would say complete till Unit 2, Pathway 1, and Pathway 2. Also, regarding the mail, I don't think you will be receiving any more mails for further sessions. So keep an eye on Discord, and We will be updating everything about ASJ there. If you have any further questions, you can ask, or this you can leave this session. We are done for today.
Bhaiya, when will you upload this video? I was disconnected in middle.
Yeah, the sooner we get the video from Google, and then we'll share it. Like after the editing is done and it's uploaded, we'll share the link.
Okay.
Actually, the break is in the perfect time we wanted it.
I wanted it.
Means in the beginning of a mid-sem, the break is there, so it is like good thing for us.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So if we are done, then I can stop the meeting for today.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.